Hey everyone, it's me, Cassie. I just wanted to share a little bit about me so that way if you want to share your story, you can kind of get a sense of where I'm coming from and feel more comfortable sharing with me. Uh, so I'm just going to start. It all started when I was a baby. I was about 18 months old. I had the chicken pox. I was really, really sick. One got really infected. I had a really high fever. I went to the hospital. Um, One got so bad that it actually caused a pretty bad infection right in my leg. Long story short, they had to give me a lot of antibiotics, and I was in the hospital for about a week, just being pumped with antibiotics. Fast forward to the age of 3, I was having ups and downs of moods. My mom was worried that I might be, bipolar. She was not really sure what was going on. One night I was playing with my siblings. I ended up having a seizure. My parents brought me to the hospital. Come to find that I had a seizure caused by low calcium. Found out my parathyroid had been destroyed, and they diagnosed me with hypoparathyroidism, which is just a fancy word for that my body does not make any calcium or vitamin D. So from that point on, I was on a lot of calcium, taking a lot of Tums and vitamin D supplements. When I was about the age of 6, I don't really recall what happened, but I do remember that I was really sick and they had found out that I had Addison's disease. And Addison's is a disease that means that your adrenal glands do not work. And so when you get that scared feeling or excited feeling, sometimes your adrenaline pump, your body pumps adrenaline to react. My body does not. So I don't have adrenaline. So when I get sick, my body doesn't know how to react. So I just get worse, and you can go into a crisis, and you can get very, very sick. So because of all of that, they they had done a lot of tests, come to find that I had this really rare autoimmune disease called autoimmune polyglandular syndrome, which again is just a fancy word for I have a lot of problems. Uh, my body was attacking itself. My immune system was overactive, so it was destroying my parathyroid, which is that's why it was gone. It was attacking my adrenal glands, which is why they weren't working. It was starting to attack my liver, and it just yeah, just a whole bunch of crazy stuff. Because it was so rare, I was in the hospital for most of my childhood. Thankfully don't remember a lot of it, but I do remember being at the doctors a lot, being in the hospital a lot, and having to get blood work done almost every day, being on a lot of medications, and being kind of limited to certain things. Uh, but I don't remember my childhood being necessarily bad. I just remember being sick a lot, and my parents were always worried that I was going to have an Addison's attack, and that would put me right in the hospital because, yeah, that would do that. So because of all of that, I take a lot of medications. I take a lot of hydrocortisone, which is to suppress my immune system so it's not overactive. So because of that too, my immune system is a little bit weak, so I catch things a lot easier. I I still have to take a lot of calcium and vitamin D. I take another steroid for my kidneys because of all the calcium I take. I have what's called nephrocalcinosis, which is uh, calcium deposits in the kidneys. So I do have kidney stones, and I'm being very open and honest about everything, trying to keep it as as not unpleasant to hear about, but this is my story. But that's just like my illness. That's just like what I have. But it's not terminal. It's not who I am. It's just a part of me. It's actually kind of, in my opinion, an honor and a blessing that the Lord has allowed me to have this because without it, I don't believe that I would be where I am in my faith. Well, on top of being sick with just my general illness, I had a couple of times where I, just out of the blue, when I was 12 years old, I had E. coli poisoning, and my kidney shut down completely. Doctors told my parents that they should probably just say their goodbyes because it didn't look promising. And I had no more blood running through my veins. I was completely depleted. I had a lot of blood transfusions, and I was very, very sick. I went in for surgery to get a tube put into my chest because I had no more veins to draw blood from or get an IV. The doctors weren't sure that I would survive through that. I clearly I did. Uh, and when I came out of surgery, because the Lord healed me, my kidneys just started working again. And from that moment on, I was getting better. I did not know I was close to death at the time. No one told me. I don't know why you would tell a 12-year-old that, but I'm grateful that my parents kept that from me. Uh, and I was able to just focus on just getting better. It wasn't until years later, actually, that I realized how sick I really was. Um, but I was in the hospital for about a month with that. But that was just out of the blue. That could have unfortunately happened to anyone that had nothing to do with my disease. It just, yeah, that was one of my near death experiences. And then when I was 14, I one day woke up feeling kind of funny, went to the hospital, and then within 24 hours, I couldn't move from the neck down. I could feel everything, I just couldn't move my body. Literally had no idea what was going on. Had I don't even know how many tests I had done to me, but I had everything under the book and then some like doctors were just completely baffled. I couldn't I couldn't really understand what was going on, but I did know that no matter how the doctors were talking, like I mean, a lot of doctors were saying, she might never walk again, and in my heart of hearts, I always knew that I was gonna move again. It was just a matter of when. I did have my moments with God. I yelled at him. I was angry. I couldn't believe that he would do this, and but at the same time, uh, he would show me bits and pieces here and there as to why he was allowing this to happen. And yeah, it just within a year I was able to move again. I was able to, you know, that is a huge part of my life in itself. But to me, it was just like another part, just a bit of my life. Just even though it's huge, it's just like a bit of it. It was very important to my story because I had that entire time I could not move, and the Lord says to be still, and I couldn't do anything but be still. So he and I had a lot of conversations during that time, and my faith grew more and more with each day because of that. So being paralyzed isn't something that necessarily do I ever want to do again, but I'm so grateful that I got to experience it and have that deeper, I guess you would say, empathy towards others who have that type of illness. And later, I'm digressing. I apologize, but they later did find out it was an illness called Guillain-Barré syndrome. It's extremely, well, unfortunately, it's becoming more popular. You hear about it more, but back then, this was oh, 22 years ago um, that I had Guillain-Barré. So 22 years ago, people did not, it was not heard of. So not sure how I got it, but I am grateful that I did have it and I got to live through it because it is also something that you can die from because it paralyzes every muscle in the body. Uh, I thankfully didn't have my heart paralyzed. My heart was fine. My organs seemed to be working. The only thing that really got affected was my lungs. I was having a harder time getting a deep breath. I couldn't breathe as well, but never was on a breathing tube or anything like that. So God definitely he he protected me from that. So there's that. And then going back to my illness, calcium when it's low, potassium, whatever, they kind of go together. When they are low, I can feel it. You get symptomatic. You cramp. Your muscles cramp because when you don't have enough calcium, your electrolytes are low, your muscles tense up. So throughout my life, I've had many doctors, different people. Growing up, the older you get, you obviously can't see a pediatrician anymore. And once I hit 18, I had to go see a new doctor. And these doctors, they're called endocrinologists. And endocrinologists obviously deal with endocrine issues. And my endocrine issues are hypoparathyroidism and Addison's. But most endocrine doctors work with diabetes, type 1 diabetes. I also don't have diabetes. My autoimmune polyglandular syndrome, I have type um, I have type A. So because I have type A, I don't have I'm supposed to have diabetes as well, but I don't. Uh, I No one can answer that, but I just don't. I just was never given type 1 diabetes. But so many doctors are just dealing with diabetes. They do know hypoparathyroidism. They understand like the ins and outs of that, but they weren't focusing on that, and that's like my major issue, right? So when I'm feeling symptomatic, I need to go to the hospital. I need calcium. I need help. Well, many times I've been in the hospital, and many times doctors have let me get worse and worse while I was there because they were not listening to what I was saying. They were focusing more on numbers and not symptoms. And normal calcium has is ranges from around 8.5 to I think like 10.2 or like around that's like a safe range for like anybody. Mine would be like in I start getting symptomatic once it drops below like 8.5. Like that's when I start feeling things. I'm very sensitive. So when I get to the hospital, if my calcium said like 8.2, they weren't as concerned. They're like, well, she's not that low, so we're not going to worry about that. She's fine. She'll be fine. But once it gets below a certain level for me, I can't bounce back by myself. It's just, I can't do it. My body has never been able to. So, long story short, a lot of times I would go there. The calcium would be in the normal range for some doctors, so they wouldn't take care of it. And uh, one instance, when I was in my early 20s, I was in the hospital and I knew my calcium was low. I could feel it. I was suffering. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't do anything. The doctors literally said they weren't going to give me anything to help. So all I could do was just close my eyes, and I allowed myself to accept the fact that I was probably going to pass away. I was sad. I mean, I didn't want to like say I didn't want to leave my parents and my family, but I was like, I'm gonna go home to the Lord. I was prepared. I closed my eyes, and all I could see was this bright light in my eyes, and I started singing, Lord, reign in me, reign in your power. And I just felt at peace. I could breathe a little bit. I was just like, I'm ready, Lord. And I heard the nurse come in, and she said, they just ordered her calcium, it's coming. And at that point, I'm like, well, I guess I'm not dying right now. God doesn't, it's not my time. Calcium came, started doing everything. Found out later, I asked my mom, I said, why did you turn the overhead light on when I had my eyes closed? And she said, I didn't, because there's like an overhead light over hospital beds. And she goes, I didn't. And I said, yeah, you did. I felt it. I could see it when my eyes were closed, a light pop on. When the nurse came to the door, and she said, no, I didn't. In that moment, I'm like, okay, Lord, that I knew it was him. So that's kind of basically just the whole spiel of that part of my life. But I still deal with my Addison's. I still have hypoparathyroidism. Like, I mean, this is an autoimmune disease. It's something that only the Lord can heal me from. Which, again, I truly, in my heart of hearts, I believe that the Lord uh, can heal me from this, whether it be here on earth. But I know regardless, I'm going to be healed because I definitely will be healed in heaven. Uh, Other things have happened in my life. Say I'm 36. I'm 36 years old right now. I have. I had, always prayed for a husband, someone that could, not just physically take care of me, but like obviously emotionally and spiritually. Like, every girl the wants the man God has for them. I had had a previous relationship before I had met my husband to be, or husband not to be, husband I have now. Um, but and the relationship was very toxic, very it was basically killing me from the inside out. Like, I had so much stress, and because of the Addison's too, stress was like not okay. And I was just so sick. And it wasn't a physical abusive relationship like that. It was just very mental, like it was like a mental abuse type of thing. Um, One day was my sister was home visiting from her job in Montana, and someone she had worked with, he was on a food truck, and this food truck got into an accident. And my dad asked, "Hey, how did you see the food truck accident?" And I said no. So he showed it to me, and there was this guy standing there talking about how he was in this food truck that literally should have killed these two guys that were in it. And he caught my eye. So I added him on Facebook. I took it back because I was like, no, that's so weird. That's so weird. But then it was on my heart for like 2 weeks. So I eventually went back, and I just was like, I'm going to add him. The worst thing that can happen is that he doesn't accept. I'll never have to see him again. I'll never have to see him ever because he doesn't know who I am. And this was in November of 2018. And in January of 2019, I get a message from my now husband saying that he saw a post that I posted asking if he could pray for me. And I was like starstruck. Like, this was like the first time I actually felt like excitement in a long, long time. And from that day on, like January 10th of 2019 is the day that he and I started talking every day, just praying for each other, just building on that friendship. And at the same time, I was in my former relationship. He and I were not doing well at all. Like, I was so confused. But because I committed myself to him, I was like, I have to be committed to him. He lived far away, so I didn't get to see him like at all. Eventually, my now husband, he had said that he missed me one day because we didn't talk for an entire day. And I mentioned it to my mom. I said, I don't know what to do. I really do have feelings for him, but I I feel like being I'm not being a you know I was engaged to this man before. My previous relationship, I was engaged to that man. And she said, if you respect um, my husband now that I have, if you respect him at all and care for him, you have to tell him the truth. So I did. And I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. Right before I met my now husband, I had remember crying in my dad's arms, saying, "I wish a man would fight for me when my previous fiance was like hurting me really bad." And my dad said, "Like, I will." I'm like, "Well, Dad, of course you will. You're my dad." But anyway, I never told anyone that. My dad, and it was just between my dad, myself and the Lord. Like, no one else knew. So I told my now husband that I had a fiance, that he and I were working on things, and I just, I, I know I'm taking the risk of losing you as a friend, but I really need to be honest with you. He accepted it. He was very gracious towards me, and the next day he calls me and he says, "I know you have a fiance and I know you're working on things, but I want to tell you right now that I'm going to fight for you." And in that moment I was like, "Lord, what am I doing?" This couldn't have been more clear from the Lord that this was the man for me, and that why was I fighting for a relationship from someone that clearly didn't want one anymore. So, that being said, that whole thing with my previous fiance ended. My now husband moved from Montana to New York in 2019 of August, in August of 2019. Got engaged in October of 2019 and got married right as COVID hit in March of 2020. And it was honestly the best day of my life. It happened March 28th, 2020, like literally like I think a week after COVID like hit. And we have been just building on our relationship with each other, with the Lord. Just he is every day the Lord reveals something a little more to me about how perfect he was made for me. He is just the most amazing man. So anyway, but then so with that being said, all of the struggles and all of the obstacles, all of the illnesses, everything that all it all is like, it all comes together. And that's my testimony. I I I'm not perfect. I'm going to be honest. I get frustrated with the Lord. I get frustrated with my illness. I get frustrated. I'm human. And I know I'm going to continue having days of that. It's just that's the way life is. But the beauty of that of the Lord is that he is always right there to listen to our frustrations, to our concerns. He wants us to talk to him. He wants a relationship like that. And that's what I want this page to be about. Is I want this to be a page of people opening up to each other, other believers, maybe even people that don't believe it or are on the fence about it. Just anyone that has a story, it's important. It doesn't matter how big or little it might seem to you, it's important. And I want to encourage you to share all of the ins and outs of anything. I get very deep, and I get very sometimes TMI when it comes to a lot of things. So I don't want anyone worrying about being too much about anything. Like I encourage you to just speak your story and know that it's safe, and know that you're loved, and that we are here to pray and to be there for each other. And that's what this page is about. It's just opening up, to be vulnerable, to feel again safe, and know that uh, you're not alone in this world with with struggles. And being a believer in Christ doesn't mean that your life's going to be easy. It, it just it just means your life's going to be worth it. So again, I thank you for listening to my story. I know I probably went on and on too long, but um, I I look forward to hearing from you and seeing all my new friends that I can communicate with. So, right. Thank you.